Specific preparation in the winter, Tempo Tuesdays. We're going to do a big active warm up, usually the Harvard warm up or a 30-meter warm up. We're going to do our build ups. The focus may be intensive tempo, speed endurance. We're definitely going to be bleeding into special endurance 1, depletion runs, critical zone training, and multi system training at this point of the season. Remember, special endurance 1, an example of one of these types of workouts would be 4 times 250 fast, 90 to 98% with 12 minutes recovery. Special endurance 1 will challenge the anaerobic system and velocities that more closely mimic the demands of the 400 meters. After our session, be it intensive tempo, speed endurance, special endurance, depletion run, critical zone training, a multi-system training, we're going to follow that up with some barefoot activity, make sure we keep the lower extremities flexible and strong, and then with some sand or grass walks, and then we're going to hit the weight room for some tempo lifts. Definition of depletion run: it's going to be a special endurance rep, then a set of short speed endurance. So you may do a 250, 1 minute recovery, and then 4 times 50 hard with 1 minute recovery. This is basically special endurance plus. You still have desired velocity at the end of the workout. This is great for, say, your racer, because they're not going to be able to do lots of 250s, and if they try to do them, they're probably going to slow down quite a bit as the repetitions go on. So in order to keep up the velocities, one of the things you could do with the racer is do a depletion run such as this. Critical zone training. The term critical zone training, this is a concept that Wilbur Ross, who wrote the Hurdler's Bible, coined back in the day. He believed that there was a certain part of the race that was critical. Every single race had a different critical zone area, but every race has a critical zone area. Wilbur believed that lots of people can get to this critical point in the right time, but after doing so, they weren't able to hold on and finish the race. He believed that the last 80 meters was the critical zone for the 400 meters. We do see a lot of athletes crash and burn in the last 80 to 100 meters, so I think Wilbur was absolutely correct. One of the workouts that I use in the critical zone training is 1 to 3 sets of 3 times 160 with 20 seconds recovery, and then they get full recovery between the sets. And you're doing these pretty fast, and yes, they're only getting 20 seconds recovery. Why 3 times 160? Well, 60, 60, and 80 is 400 meters, so I have them run the first 160, 20 seconds off, second 160, 20 seconds off. I make them run the third 160, but I actually time the first 80. When I add up the 160 time, and the 80 time, it gives me a 400 value. And then what I can do is in the next set, I can compare whether they can, match up, whether they're running just as fast or they slowing down a lot. And this will help me kind of understand whether they can double in races or do I need to change some things with the training. Another example of critical zone training is going to be 350, then 90 seconds recovery, then a 250. This is something that more of a pacer would probably do really well with. I couldn't see a racer being able to be very successful in this. They'd do okay, but I think it's more for a workout that I would use with a pacer. Then there's 3 times 200 with 1 minute recovery fast, just getting after it. I think racers would do really well with this type of training for the critical zone. And then there's 5 times 200 with 2 minutes recovery, and the pace that you ask them to do is whatever you're hoping their second 200 will be in the race. So if you're hoping that their second half of the race is going to be 25 seconds, then you'd ask them to run 25 seconds for all 5 of these 200s with 2 minutes recovery. Now the mixed athlete that's part racer and pacer would do really well with this type of workout. So again, 350, 250 probably pacer, 3 times 200 racer, and 5 times 200 is someone that's going to be the mix between the two. These workouts will literally have your athletes crawling off the track and possibly getting sick. The waste product in their bodies is higher than when they actually race the 400. It's awful, but it's beneficial at the same time. I remember when I first learned about critical zone training and the 160 workout, I heard a coach that was speaking at a conference, and he talked about how he would do critical zone training and he wasn't able to do it on his track because of the snow. So he went out to the street that was plowed. And he took two huge pylons, cones like construction cones, and put them 160 meters apart, and then took a third one and put it in the middle. So they go 160, 20 seconds, turn around, run back the other way, 20 seconds off, and then run 160 all the way back. But he would only time it to the middle. And when I say that your athletes will literally crawl off the track and possibly get sick, he told a story about how, you know, he had these pylons out and they were large orange cones, and a police officer rolled up and saw all these kids like getting sick and throwing up, and he had no idea what was going on. So the police officer was a little bit worried and saw the cones and said, well, what are you guys building something here? Is this a construction project? And the coach turned around and said, yes, as a matter of fact, we are. We're building a dynasty. And I think critical zone training is something that's very important in training for the 400-meter runner, but you also have to be very careful with it, because if you use it too much, you'll absolutely ruin the athlete. There's other types of training that have to be involved as well. And you wouldn't want to do this type of training right before a meet, because it's going to take them days to recover.